On today's show, we're learning about the rich history of the Northwest Angle.
Fort St. Charles is a spot that's equally important to Canadians and Americans.
Then, researchers investigate flow batteries for storing renewable energy.
We're cracking the electricity code, but it's going to require a lot of storage as well.
Welcome to Prairie Sportsman. I'm Brett Amundsen. We got a great show for you, starting right now.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org.
Each summer, thousands of anglers head to the Northwest Angle in search of walleyes, crappies, muskies, and more. As they launch their boat and motor around Lake of the Woods, they're catching more than fish. They're navigating routes that have been used for centuries. When you look at a map of the state of Minnesota, you'll notice something at the top that looks a little out of place, almost like a chimney. Zoom in a little bit and you'll realize this is the Northwest Angle, a part of the United States surrounded by Canada. This is called an exclave. And to get there by vehicle, you have to travel through Canada. You can also travel across the water of Lake of the Woods and stay in Minnesota the entire time. You can take a boat in the summer, or in the winter you can use the Lake of the Woods passenger service, or drive your snowmobile up the 42-mile staked and groomed Grant and Aid Trail. To those that travel to the Angle by vehicle, to get to the islands, you'll have to go through Youngs Bay.
We're up here at the Northwest Angle at the northernmost point in the contiguous United States, Joe Henry. How long has this buoy been here?
Well, I tell you, it's been years now, but I'll tell you, it's amazing how much traction it's gotten, Brett. I mean, you know, we got people coming from all over the world to get a picture with this buoy now.
The Northwest Angle is made up of two parts, the mainland called Angle Inlet. This area features a number of resorts, but also some of the most unique landmarks in the state.
We have the only one-room schoolhouse, in the state of Minnesota. It's through the Warroad School District, and we have grades K through 6 at that school. You know, it's funny. I was asking the teacher once about how does that work? How do you teach the different curriculums? And she said it's so neat because the older kids end up teaching the younger kids, and by teaching the younger kids, they really inherit the knowledge very thoroughly. It's just kind of a unique way of teaching, and it's just a unique area. You know, you think about this one, when those kids get on that bus, they got to drive hours and hours on that bus every single day. So I think, as the story goes, they normally sleep on the way to school. They do their homework on the way home.
There's also the northernmost post office on the mainland, and a post office only accessible by boat at Sportsman's Oak Island Lodge. Those who want a break from being on the water can try their luck at the Northwest Angle Golf Course, which features something you won't see on most golf courses around the world.
It's really unique. 7 of the 9 greens are actually a hard sand green that you can putt on. Really a cool course. It's beautiful. Doesn't cost much to play, and they even have golf carts up here.
The other part of the angle is made up of water from Lake of the Woods and a handful of islands. To get there, you'll start at Youngs Bay.
7 or 8 lodging facilities on the Angle Inlet here. Beautiful. It's great fishing. You got Jerry's Bar and Grill. You got a lot of other resorts. I mean, it's kind of home base. But anybody that's going in this part of the Northwest Angle, or even this part of Ontario, they come through Youngs Bay right here by the buoy.
There are 4 resorts at the Angle that offer dining and drinks. Jerry's on the mainland, and then 3 on the islands. Sunset Lodge and Sportsman's on Oak Island, And our destination for this trip, Cyrus's Flag Island Resort.
There's a lot of things you can learn about some of the history of the area out in a boat, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow.
We're going to be with Joe Lauren, and Joe Lauren's a historian from the area, and he actually created an app, the Lake of the Woods Explorer app, and I mean, it's got so much, and that's what we're going to see tomorrow.
All right, well, tonight we're going to Flag Island. We're going to have some food there, so let's jump in a boat.
Flag Island Resort has been a popular place to stay for years at the Northwest Angle. In 2024, it was purchased by Cyrus Resort owners Justin and Tanya Ferguson. It's located about 3.5 miles from Youngs Bay and features 25 cabins, hotel rooms, and a full-service bar and restaurant. After a big meal and a good night's sleep, we met Joe Lauren at the dock the next morning and headed out on the Lake of the Woods.
All right, so we're on Lake of the Woods at the Northwest Angle right now. We're not fishing, but we're learning about some of the history. Joe Lauren is with us from Lighthouse Boat Tours. What's the first thing we're going to go see today?
We're going to check out a sun sweep. And during the solstice, whether it be summer or winter, the sun follows the trajectory of this black granite artwork. And a guy named David Barr in Michigan created these as a peace offering between Canada and the U.S. And there's one on Lake of the Woods, there's one in the state of Washington, and one in Maine.
Is this why we've never gone to war with Canada?
I think so. So here you can see it from the lake. Like if you look on the left side of the house, you'll see some black granite. So what happens is like about every 5 years, all the locals come out here and it's a kind of a big community event. But you could see the black granite stones to the left of the house here. If the atmospheric conditions are right, the sun will actually glow on the rock and you can see where it's at.
Interesting.
So they're shaped differently because it follows one rock in the summer, one rock in the winter.
The sun sweep is located on private land, so you must get permission to view it up close. It is visible from the lake, however.
Our next stop is Fort St. Charles. Fort St. Charles is a spot that's equally important to Canadians and Americans because if you're into exploring, you know, the first explorers and like the star of the movie was Lavandre and Father Alanu. And so if you're into exploring, you got 21 people that came to the island or came to the lake for the first time. And then you also got a murder mystery.
Is this a park at all?
Fort St. Charles was actually started by the Crookston Diocese, and now the Knights of Columbus maintain it. (1732) is when the fort got its beginning. 21 people stayed in the fort for the first 3 years. Pretty cool spot, and you kind of ask yourself, why did they pick this spot?
Why did they pick it?
Well, it's kind of unique in a way where it was kind of isolated. You know, like Lake of the Woods in this area, just, you know, having a good harbor is important. But, you know, even when you look at the layouts here, every building that existed here is kind of laid out by pipes now. So that was a trading post. Father Alanu stayed there. That was the chapel.
Okay.
Pretty unique setup here.
So 1732 to 1749, that's...
Yep, that's kind of when it went. And then it was kind of forgotten for many years. For like 200 years, kind of just the fort kind of went into disarray. And then St. Boniface College in Winnipeg, they actually were doing some history lessons and they said, you know, we should go try to find that fort. That's part of that cross in the center. It says Fort St. Charles, 1732. Founded 1732 and then refounded 1908. 1908 is kind of like when it's got its beginning again, where they came out here and retraced everything and tried to protect it. Things were actually well documented then. All the explorers had journals. So people that came to visit the fort back in the 1732, they could tell you who came to visit and for what purpose. It was pretty well organized for being a primitive time.
This is really neat. And then the original layout. So how were they able to find a foundation? And that's where they put the pipes in?
Like even today when you're going out exploring Lake of the Woods, like the old POW camps, you could see like where the buildings were because they're just humps there. You know, that's kind of what's left of the foundation. So even though nature's pretty powerful and it retakes itself, you could still find old building structures.
And who was it that was here? And then why were they here? And who were they working with? What was their purpose to be here?
So they came from Quebec and they kind of came...
These are traders?
Yep, traders that came down this way and explorers. And their goal was to find the Western Sea. Find the Western Sea, that was a big deal back then. And you know, when you come to Lake of the Woods for the first time, I mean, even when you're crossing from War Road to the Angle, there's like 10 minutes in your boat where you don't see land. So it's like, wow, this could be it. And you know, you're kind of wondering. So let's set up camp here and understand this body of water, because it's way bigger than we thought compared to all the other lakes on the way here.
They had a little bit further to go.
Right. Yep. Yes. Yep.
So these are French explorers, French fur traders.
Yep.
They're here. They're starting to work with some of the local natives that are here,
Yep.
and they ended up having a misunderstanding with one of the local tribes.
The French fur traders had an established route that went from Quebec all the way to Lake of the Woods, traveling across Lake Superior, through Grand Portage, up the Pigeon River, across northern Minnesota to Rainy Lake, and from there they'd take the Rainy River to Lake of the Woods and up to the Angle. They'd established trading partners with some of the local natives. On June 6, 1736, 21 of the Fort St. Charles inhabitants were sent on a mission by Jean-Baptiste de La Vendre for winter supplies. Father Jean-Pierre Alanu, the military chaplain at the fort, decided to go with. Along the way, the group pulled their canoes up on an island to rest for the night. They built a fire to cook and to stay warm. It would be the last fire they'd ever make. A group of natives, angry that the traders may have done business with rivals, see the smoke and ambush the French. All 21 are killed.
According to the history books, they were buried under a cairn of rocks, which just means a pile of rocks. So that's where they're.
That's
there's
Massacre Island.
Not a lot of dirt up there, so they just had rocks to work with.
And we're going to see that next?
Correct.
Well, it's a beautiful view, even if it's a tragic event that took place here. So behind us, up on top of this hill, there's a cross.
Yeah.
So who put that cross there, and why did they put it in that location?
St. Boniface College, when they were rediscovering the fort in 1908, they came out here because the locals at that time said this was where the massacre happened. So they came out here, there was a pile of rocks, and in the history books it said the original 21 bodies were buried under a cairn of rocks. So if you can imagine, just a bunch of pile of rocks, and then St. Boniface College put the cross up, and they put a little plate down there in 1908 when they were here to kind of reestablish everything from the fort this way. So it kind of tells the whole story from Fort St. Charles, where everyone lived, until the end of their exploring days when they came here to stay one night when they were going back for supplies.
After the massacre, the misfortune continued for the 21 who were killed.
All the headless bodies were buried here. And then 1908, St. Boniface College in Winnipeg decided, we're studying history in this Fort St. Charles place. That's not too far away. We should do a little field trip and go out and see if we could find that old fort. No one's talked about it for 200 years. So St. Boniface College came out here. They could see where the bones were, and they said, we should bring these back to the lab and see if we could find Father Alanu's and La Vérendrye's, if we could if we understand who, their bones out of everything. So they took all the bones out of here. They brought it to Winnipeg to St. Boniface College, and within a week, the college building burnt down. So now the bones and the partially burnt bones are in a glass case at St. Boniface College. Yeah, not to say you guys want to show that for your show, but I'm just, I tell you the whole thing.
Yeah.
In 1929, the stock market crashed, and they basically said, hey, hell with the world, let's live in the middle of the lake with our friends and family and just wait out this depression. It was 90 to 120 people. They had some voter rolls where they actually have a Facebook page, French Portage Narrows, where the ancestors of these families actually are putting together old maps. They had fresh water supply. They call it now Root-Beer Falls because Inland Lake flows into Lake of the Woods, but it's a really dark stained water. There's a blueberry patch. Sometimes bears will poke their head over the top, and this is where I say in wolves and bears at the same time. So a lot of people don't realize this is a waterfall because you almost got to put your nose at the back rock. And it's been kind of dry, so I don't think we'll have much water flow. they had a bunch of old cars there. One of the cars we'll look at is a 1936 Pontiac, and there's two other cars there. CarQuest does corporate events at one of the Canadian resorts. One of the cars has CarQuest on it. I think that was in their annual report last year.
So there's a couple of sites like this up here. These are pictographs here, and then there's petroglyphs, which are carvings. And how old do you think these pictographs are?
Hundreds of years old. I don't know if they actually know how old they are, but way before anyone on the lake's lifetime, way before even the explorers were here, before 1700s. There was this lady, Alicia Colson from McGill University in Canada. She did a study on these, and she said the red was from a part of a sturgeon, because today's paints don't last that long, and these things are hundreds of years old.
Where are we going next then? We're going to go see some petroglyphs.
We're going to go to the Quartz Island petroglyphs, where there's actually some interesting carvings there. Some of it looks like strange letters. There's like spirals, and there's it either could be a canoe or a feather, and like a strange alphabet that has offerings. There's coins, tobacco, clothing, and when you see that, it's kind of a special area even to this day. Even when I've gone to Morrison and visited, I got gas there, and I'd ask, what's your most sacred spot? They always say the Quartz Island petroglyphs. Probably the uniquest thing that you could just see now is this thing. It looks like a canoe or a feather, and then if you look, the water's but there's weird letters there. We're jet skiing around, it looked like a building here, and then when we jet skied around, we just felt this 50-degree air coming off the island, and we thought, wow, that's weird, and then we crawled up there, and at first I thought it was a bear den, and we went in there, and it's pretty big.
Tell my mom I love her. Now this is one of the gold mines up here, and the opening's kind of narrow, but once you're in it, I guess it's pretty cool inside, so and it opens up quite a bit. So let's go check it out. Oh yeah, quite a bit cooler.
You can see why they came in here. From what I've learned, the small amount of research I've done is that quartz veins will indicate that the possibility of gold being in here. And when you come in here, you can see these gold flecks in the rock here. There's some more back in here. I mean, I kind of want to grab an axe and pickaxe and start digging into it. What was the Frosty the Snowman? No, Frosty the Snowman?
You can't.
Cornelius?
And Yosemite Sam.
Whatever it is. But it makes me want to start mining. I get it. Get your own gold.
The name's Yukon Cornelius, the greatest prospector in the North.
Well, what a really neat opportunity to come up here to the Northwest Angle and just learn about the history too. You can come up here to fish, but it's not just fishing up here. There's a lot of other things that you can do, and you too can come up here and learn about these things with Joe. And thank you for taking us out today. I really appreciate it. And if people want to come up and do this tour, what should they do?
www.LOTW for lakeofthewoodstours.com. Check it out and come on up, see some cool stuff.
Minnesota doesn't have any fossil fuels. No coal, no oil, no natural gas. What we do have is an abundance of renewable energy from the sun and the wind. Researchers are looking at ways to store that energy in huge batteries that are made without the need to mine rare precious metals.
What we have is abundant clean energy in Minnesota, and so that could be an economic engine for our state. 15 years ago, it wasn't entirely clear how we would get to put so much green energy on the grid. Now we're there. We're cracking the electricity code, but it's going to require a lot of storage as well.
The project that we're working on is a large battery storage project, and it is in partnership with Otter Tail Power Company and OETI, a Minnesota-based company. The project started after a trip that my colleague Troy Goodnow and I took in 2016 with other people from the University of Minnesota and other leaders from the state. We went to look at battery storage technology in California.
California set ambitious electricity goals years ago, and they've blown through all those goals. They've just conquered that mountain and really changed their electricity system with storage. We forget how familiar we are with energy storage already in our lives, and especially like lithium-ion storage, as people are talking about EV cars and whether they're pro or against them. If you've got a mobile phone in your pocket and you use a computer every day, you're already very familiar with lithium-ion technology. It's ubiquitous, it's what we use. We see China has invested a lot in energy storage technologies. They really own the lithium-ion battery storage space.
In 2021, the University of Minnesota Morris received a grant from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund to study flow battery technologies as an alternative to lithium-ion.
Lithium-ion and other batteries like that do require rare earth metals that are harder to obtain. We were looking at this as an opportunity to lessen the environmental impact of a battery. Most of these materials are easily recyclable, so you will be using chemistry that is not hard to mine. For example, some of the batteries we looked at are iron. Iron is the most commonly occurring mineral, particularly in Minnesota, or vanadium, which is also a very commonly occurring metal, or some of the other chemistries that are coming out. And so to be able to use something that is more common, doesn't require the mining impacts.
You've got two tanks of liquid. You've got a positive and negative tank. You've got a membrane, and if you are clever the way you flow those liquids, you can pull electrons out of them.
The huge benefit to a flow battery is you don't have a degradation like you do with a lithium-ion battery. The lithium-ion battery, your cell phone, after a couple of years, does not retain the same amount of charge. This one would have unlimited cycling, so it can use it multiple times a day, and it shouldn't really ever have less storage capacity. And so the opportunity to keep it 20, 25, 30 years is very, very high potential. If you think of a cell phone, when it's really cold, it doesn't work the same, right? And if it's really hot, it doesn't work the same. So you have to kind of keep it within kind of the operating ranges that are good. A flow battery, you should not have to worry about that because it typically, depending on the chemistry, doesn't require the amount of HVAC controls that you would for a lithium-ion battery storage of that size.
Although flow batteries have been developed on the east and west coasts, there are none in the upper Midwest. University researchers are looking at various flow batteries in the marketplace and plan to install a demonstration battery on campus.
The University of Minnesota Morris, we have been a leader and we want to continue to be a leader in this area.
Our campus is carbon neutral. We've got 2 large wind turbines which provide over 60% of our electricity.
We're looking at a project that would be about 1 megawatt. So our campus uses about 1 megawatt of power on a normal day when it's not too hot or too cold.
We're a 1 million square foot campus, right? We're essentially a city within the city of Morris. So this really provides big opportunities for rural communities.
Flow batteries are not small enough for homes or vehicles, but they can provide energy to a grid.
Otter Tail Power Company will be the operator of it, and so it will be connected to their grid. They have a large footprint, and they have lots of small towns that they support, and so thinking about ways that this could potentially go for them to be able to help meet some of the energy demands more locally.
These solutions solve 2 issues. They both drive economic development with what we have, which is wind, solar, and great soil, and it helps address some of the environmental challenges that we're facing too.
It's an opportunity for our students to be able to learn, and that's a benefit of our campuses. We have opportunities for our students to be able to engage and work on some of these projects and be able to be a part of a large project like this that will be the first of its kind and definitely in the upper Midwest. We are hoping that this will be a place for other utilities to learn. One of the things that we have learned through this process is people really want to be able to see things and see how they work. And that's what we want to be, is that place to be able to say, you want to come and learn about this, come here. you can see it, and we're going to be able to tell you the things that are working, the things that are not working, and the things that we're learning from this.
If you live here, you know it's windy in western Minnesota, and you know it's sunny. These are assets, and so I'm excited about us harnessing these assets to meet the human needs that we have in the region. We're talking about batteries that require tanks of liquid, pumps, valves, membranes, all kinds of things that our companies can make right here. We think that these new technologies for stationary storage are going to just become commonplace.
I could see large commercial or industrial companies or manufacturers or other groups of people that could get together and use renewables and partner with battery power and battery storage to be able to utilize that in whatever process they need. There is some cost savings that we will likely see as the technology develops. When West Central Research Outreach Center and the University of Minnesota Morris partnered to install the first wind turbine, it was expensive. When you put in the second one in 2011, it was still. Now you see lots of wind turbines. It's pretty standard. They know how to do the project. They knew how to do the process. I see battery storage in the next 10 to 15 years. You will see the same thing. You'll see the same development. It's just like any cost curve. The cost curve will come down. And we feel with minerals that are not rare earth minerals that are harder to mine, the cost curve can come down faster. For example, iron, it's very abundant and very easy to get. That could get the cost curve down very quickly.
As we drive around rural Minnesota, we see storage everywhere, right? So we harvest grain, we store it in containers. The energy revolution we're talking about right now is just tanks of water with some stuff in it, and we can store huge amounts of energy. Battery storage, the way we're talking about, flow battery storage, is just going to be part of a well-balanced energy storage diet. We see economic development here, right? We want our kids and grandkids to be able to have good paying jobs in our region. We do believe this has transformative potential. Driving around rural areas and seeing tanks of liquid that have huge amounts of electricity stored in them, that's transformative.
Funding for Prairie Sportsmen is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota.